I was only 6 years old when I lost both of my parents in a terrible accident. That day, my entire world changed. I didn't understand why everyone was crying. I kept asking when my mom and dad were coming home, but they never did. I was just a little girl with no parents, no siblings, and no idea what would happen to me next. Then my uncle stepped forward. His name was Daniel. He was my father's younger brother, and he promised everyone that he would raise me as his own daughter. And he kept that promise. For the next 12 years, Daniel was the closest thing I had to a father. He took me to school. He helped me with my homework. He attended my school events. When I was sick, he stayed beside me. When I was scared, he told me everything would be okay. I trusted him completely. I never imagined that one day the same man would try to take everything my parents had left for me. When I turned 18, I received a letter from a lawyer. My parents had left behind more than I knew. There were properties, investments, and shares in a family business. Because I was only 6 when they died, everything had been protected until I became an adult. I was shocked. I had always believed my parents had left very little. Then I discovered that my uncle already knew about the inheritance. I confronted him. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then he told me that he had spent 12 years raising me. He reminded me of everything he had sacrificed, and I couldn't deny it. He had raised me. He had been there when I had nobody. So I decided not to fight with him. I trusted him. But a few months later, I discovered the real reason he wanted control of my parents' property. His businesses were failing. He had lost a huge amount of money. He had debts. And then things became even worse. Daniel had developed a serious health problem that required expensive treatment. He was desperate. One evening, he finally admitted that he needed my parents' property. He said the money could save his business and help pay for his treatment. I was heartbroken. Not because of the money, because the person asking for it was the man I had trusted my entire life. For a moment, I wanted to walk away. I wanted to tell him that the property belonged to me. But then I remembered the little girl I had been at 6 years old. And I remembered who had taken her in when everyone else was gone. So I made a decision that even Daniel never expected. I told him, "I'll give it to you." He stared at me in disbelief. I continued, "You raised me when I had nobody. You gave me a home when I lost my parents." I haven't forgotten that. Daniel couldn't speak. He had expected anger. He had expected a fight. Instead, I chose to help him. I transferred the property and assets I was willing to give him. Daniel used the money to deal with his debts, stabilize his business, and pay for his treatment. And slowly, his life began to change. But neither of us knew that this decision would completely change my life too. Because 2 years later, something happened that neither of us could have predicted. 2 years passed after I gave Daniel the property. At first, I thought I had made the biggest sacrifice of my life. I had given away something my parents had worked their entire lives to build, but I never regretted helping the man who had raised me. And slowly, Daniel's life became stable again. His health improved, his business recovered. His financial problems became manageable. More importantly, he changed. He stopped talking about money. He stopped treating me like someone standing between him and an inheritance. He started treating me like the daughter he had raised. One night, we sat together at the dinner table. Daniel looked at me and said, "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." I smiled. "You don't have to." For the first time in years, I felt like I had my family back. I thought that was the end of the story. But life had another surprise waiting for me. The business world that had once caused Daniel so much trouble suddenly opened a completely different door for me. I started with a few small investments. Then one opportunity led to another. A business decision worked out better than expected. Another investment grew. I kept learning. I kept working. And I refused to waste the second chance life had given me. Within just 2 years, everything changed. I became incredibly successful. The little girl who had lost both of her parents at 6 was now a successful young woman with a fortune of her own. And the strangest part, I had become wealthy again without taking back a single thing I had given Daniel. One afternoon, I went to see him. He already knew about my success. He looked at me with a smile and pulled me into a hug. Then he said something that made me emotional. "Your father would be proud of you." I couldn't hold back my tears, because that was all I had ever wanted. Not revenge, not money, not even success. I just wanted to know that my parents would be proud of the person I had become. Looking back, I still think about what happened. My uncle made a terrible mistake when he tried to take control of my parents' property. His fear and desperation almost destroyed the relationship between us. But I also realized something important. People can make terrible choices when they feel trapped. That doesn't make those choices right, but sometimes giving someone a second chance can change everything. I could have exposed my uncle. I could have taken everything away from him. I could have walked out of his life forever. Instead, I remembered the man who had been there for me when I was 6 years old, the man who gave me a home when I had lost everything. And in the end, life gave me something I never expected. I lost my parents at 6. I nearly lost my uncle years later, but I chose forgiveness instead of revenge. And somehow, without taking anything from anyone, I became more successful than I had ever imagined. That experience taught me one lesson I'll never forget. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying the person who hurt you. It's becoming successful, staying kind, and proving that their betrayal never had the power to break you.